Excellent. She's doing great. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Today is Monday, February 23rd, 2026. It is 7 o'clock. We did not have a workshop. That has nothing to do with our snowy weather, but the roads are clear, so we decided to be here. And thank you for the folks who came out. First up on our agenda tonight is the approval of minutes from the February 9th, 2026 meeting.
I'll give you a motion to approve the minutes from February 9th, 2026.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. All right, first up is the manager's report. Oh, hello, Mr. Manager.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the council. Great to see you all this evening. Thanks you for coming out. I have a very brief manager's message tonight. First, to state the obvious that we are working diligently with all of our departments on the budget and working with the finance director to finalize our budget to submit to the council and begin the next phase of budget review. So that's our goal at this point, to get that wrapped up and ready for delivery. We are advertising 2 open positions at Fire and EMS for firefighter / EMT or paramedic. So we're looking for that with 2 openings. Also, there is 1 open position in the police department that we are still, and the chief and captain are still working diligently to try to fill. As of yet another storm day, I want to continue saying the praises and gratefulness to our public works team. They've done a great job, and I know Mr. Bolduc had assured me that we'd have the property ready tonight for council, and so they did a great job on that, so really grateful for their efforts. Nomination and candidate papers for the town council and school board will be available as of Thursday this week on the 26th, and from the town clerk's office. So all interested parties shall consult our dedicated town clerk to get the process begun. And there are a number of roads that are seasonally posted. Please pay attention to those, and that is specific to the weight limits. With a full listing available on the town's website, this limits vehicular traffic of 23,000 pounds or greater, and it starts effective today until April 30th. And that's all I have this evening, Madam Chair. Excuse me.
Matt, when we talk about openings in fire and police and rescue and that sort of thing, tomorrow night there is a meeting, actually tomorrow afternoon, with Freeport, Falmouth, Yarmouth, North Yarmouth, Cumberland, with continuing our talks on consolidation of services or greater utilization of efforts. And I'm wondering if we might take a minute and look at the staffing levels of our surrounding communities and see how that fits our needs for additional or filling in, and whether we can draw from those resources or at least give it some consideration.
We have had, I know I've had conversations with Falmouth as well, just in case on there. I'm fairly familiar with what we have for coverage, or at least what we have for local staffing. So we do. So yeah, definitely are. There's a lot of hands working together at this point in time. I guess the summarization of the year right there, but we were looking at all options for sure, Mr. Vail. Thank you for that. Excuse me, sorry.
Any other questions for Matt?
No, but is that meeting in Yarmouth? Where's that meeting tomorrow?
Yarmouth, 3 o'clock.
Meh, I'll try to be there.
Matt, how's the salt and sand situation for the town?
We are thankfully doing okay right now, but it's been a winter. But yeah, we had 2 deliveries 2 weeks ago. So I think we're holding in decent shape right now, but we'll probably have to have at least one more order before the end of the season if this weather pattern holds. But I will say the application that they do does a really nice job. I think the way how they put that down in comparison to others, the roads seem to be in decent shape, and the surfaces we've got a lot of black tar, and it seems to do a really nice job, and the fellows, the team really works hard at it.
Good. How's the mailbox count?
I could ask Councilor Mahalik. He was on the rescue mission over the weekend, but
Saturday wasn't a good day, Mike. I'll leave it at that.
it's a little tough. It's a little tough right now as those banks get a little bit higher. But I've seen there are a few casualties, but we do budget for that, so we're happy to replace and repair.
Thanks.
Thanks for the question.
But on another positive note, there's 2 salt ships coming into Portland in March, so should help.
It was close, I will say, at the start of February, when they were out in Portsmouth and they were out all over. And there were 2 ships that were very much delayed, and they did arrive just in time, about 3 days to spare before the last cluster of storms. So
They were out in Portsmouth?
yeah, they were out in
That thing
Portsmouth.
is a mountain down there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was closer to a molehill, unfortunately. But yeah, that was we were pretty tight there for a little bit. We could have pulled it through, but it was really nice to have 2 shipments in
Good.
time.
Super. All right. We'll move into public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Anyone want to come up? Come on up.
Good evening, Shirley Story King, Middle Road, or Shirley Lane off Middle Road. I just wanted to bring to your attention something that was in yesterday's paper. It's an invitation, you might have gotten it in your inbox already. The Maine Trust for Local News, the Portland Press Herald, and GP Cog are partnering up to have an ADU housing summit on May 15th. And if you're excited to go to that, it's open to contractors, lenders, policymakers, innovators, and municipal leaders. You could stay until the evening and meet the Maine cabin masters. So I just thought it's something, if you could be better educated on this topic, it might help us moving forward. That's if the legislature doesn't change rules between now and then.
They might.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else want to come up? Nope. All right, we will close public discussion and move into legislation and policy. As part of legislation and policy, there is also the opportunity for public comment per Article 2, Section 7 of the Town Charter. There's an opportunity for public comment on each item on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. 26-017 to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a liquor license application for Rattle Shake LLC located at 319 Main Street. For folks at home or just general kind of knowledge, 319 Main Street is the former Louis Grill, Rise Pizza, Rattle Shake. Which doesn't have anything to do with snakes, except for they have a very spicy milkshake, I am to understand, is a new business that's looking to come in to that particular space. We had a note from the fire chief who has been in communication with the applicants about commitment to monitoring the fire systems at this building, and there are no concerns from either the police chief or the code enforcement officer. Anything that I missed on that, Mr. Manager?
No, ma'am.
Okay, maybe we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this or come on up before we get into council discussion? The menu looks really good. I would urge you all to check it out if you haven't. We're excited about it. Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and any council comments or...
I have nothing. Surprisingly.
You took a moment to say you had nothing instead of just saying nothing. I appreciate that. Thank you. I do appreciate that the attachments are in the packet instead of referencing attachments that don't exist. So I do appreciate that. I noticed that the floor plan is just Rise's floor plan. It still says Rise. So I imagine that they're not changing much of anything. But I like that floor plan. That's nice.
It's pretty straightforward. I didn't
Welcome.
love that they called it Greeley High School instead of Greeley High School, but alas.
Maybe too many
rattle
boozy cocktails. You know, there's a joke in there somewhere.
Always. Any other thoughts or
I have nothing.
okay? Well, if there's no commentary, I would take a motion.
I'll give you a motion. I move to approve the liquor license application for Rattle Shake LLC located at 319 Main Street.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. All right, next up, 26-018, to set a public hearing date of March 9th to consider an act on a liquor license renewal for Flannel Shirt Company LLC, Dara Bistro, for the period of March 28th, 2026 to March 27th, 2027. And again, this is just setting the public hearing date for our next meeting, and this is a renewal of their current liquor license. Would anyone from the public like to comment on setting our public hearing date? Okay, we will close public comment. Any council discussion?
I would move to set a public hearing date of March 9th to consider an act on a liquor license renewal for Flannel Shirt Company LLC, Dara Bistro, for the period of March 28th, 26 to March 27th, 27.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Okay, next up, 26-019, to authorize the town manager to accept payment for FY 2024 delinquent taxes in the amount of $2,748.58 on property identified as tax map U21 lot 015. Mr. Manager, would you take us through this particular tax situation?
I'd be happy to, Madam Chair. Yes, this has been brought forward by, excuse me, by the town clerk. The property owner has been working with trying to establish a payment plan to get this closer to current. I think this takes care of the second half of FY *24, which should get them closer to being on track, but with a plan to be current in the fairly near future. So we think that this is a viable approach. They're 2 years behind, but we've seen others that are significantly further back. But in this case, this is bringing the most, let's say, the most at-risk lien out of being delinquent.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this? No? Okay.
Matt, when I look through both of these applications for, when I look at the grand total, that's before the payment is applied. Is that correct?
Yes. Let's see. Yes, it should be, with the remainder being at the end on the first one with the memo that you have FY '25 and '26, so that would be the remainder that there is there. But yeah, after that, after it's applied.
And have they submitted any type of a plan to pay this and make it current?
Yeah, both of them have indicated to the town clerk that they're looking to get them all, I guess you could say, in the black from where they are now.
Within a year, or
Within a
is
year
there a
to-
timetable attached to that?
Within a year to two at the most, is what we're looking at. One of them, the most, on the current one that you have under this one would bring them up with FY '25 being not at the, let's say at the lien point yet. But the plan is to get them all current, so it doesn't get to that point.
Other comments or questions?
I will say, Councilor Vail, to your question, the clerk does make an effort to say, we're not just looking to establish a triage. This is, the council's desire is to have a forward-looking plan to get them current and not have this as a recurring concept. So
Right.
that's an ongoing message that is shared. So that's why you're seeing, when these do come back to the council, they're coming with more substantial payments versus a couple $100 here or there.
Right,
which
right, okay.
really doesn't get them out of hock.
Yep. Based on that, I would offer a motion. 26-019, I move to authorize the town manager to accept payment for a fiscal year 2024 delinquent taxes in the amount of $27.48 on property identified as tax map U21 Lot 015.
There a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. All right, next up, 26-020, to authorize the town manager to accept payment for FY 2022 and a portion of FY 2023 delinquent taxes in the amount of $9,000 on a property identified as map U14, lot 008A. Okay, Matt, any additional commentary? I know you just touched on this a little bit, but
Yeah, this is also a property that had been in a family estate issue, and so as you see, there's a substantial liability, but there's now a substantial payment that's coming forward. So their plan is to have this current fairly near term. But I think there were some estate issues that had lingered for a while that they were getting sorted, and I think they're on track because. Again, they were looking at saying, well, could we pay X amount of dollars? And the clerk, through the both of us, had said, no, this needs to be substantial. This needs to be up to date. So it's similar, but as you can see, a lot more, a larger payment, I guess, at this point to try to bring it closer. There's a larger liability as well on it, but it's a lot closer to where it needs to be now. So it takes care of 22 and 23, and then that would still leave us with 24, 5, and 6. But it takes care of the biggest outstandings.
Matt, this is sort of a broader question. For the tax liabilities that we're seeing, are they mostly estate issues sort of getting sorted out, or like, are you able to easily break down sort of, like X% are because of this, X% are because of that kind of thing? So I'm sure what's the general cause for these, or is it just sort of there's a bunch of different reasons for?
But yeah, probably the latter. There's a lot more. There are sundry and varied reasons as to why. But estates generally don't get to that point too far unless there's issues between the heirs trying to figure out how the property shall be either disposed of or distributed among the heirs. You'll run into that on occasion, but there's no specific pattern that we can see. Oftentimes it may have just got away from someone, or there might be financial distress, or there may be a combination of multiple factors that get in there. In this case, it was mostly estate ridden on this in this case.
any other comments, questions, thoughts?
I would make a motion again. Item 26-020, I move to authorize the town manager to accept payment for fiscal year 2022 and a portion of fiscal year 2023 delinquent taxes in the amount of $9,000 on property identified as tax map U14, lot 008A.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. All right. Next up, 26-021, to formally request the MSAD 51 Board of Directors to begin a review of and reconsideration of the cost-sharing agreement between Cumberland and North Yarmouth. Okay, so cost-sharing agreements can be a little complex. So if everyone will humor me, I'm just going to give a little bit of a lay of the land, especially for folks at home. So kind of teeing up this agenda item, as you know, as a town council, we have fiduciary responsibility to periodically review longstanding financial structures and ensure that they reflect current conditions. Tonight's agenda item, I think, falls under that responsibility. The current MSAD 51 cost-sharing formula between Cumberland and North Yarmouth was established in 1966, so 60 years ago, some quick math. And education funding is divided into two main components. So the first is required share, which is a state-calculated minimum contribution based on a community's ability to pay. And the second is what's called cost above EPS. EPS stands for Essential Programs and Services and is essentially kind of the state's baseline for estimating what it costs to educate students. And so anything that's above that threshold or baseline is locally funded by the taxpayer. So for decades, kind of the cost above EPS has been allocated solely on the basis of state equalized valuation. So in other words, property taxes. And so using kind of a 3-year rolling average, so that's calculated by the state. And the current formula doesn't incorporate student enrollment figures at all. It's strictly down to that state equalized valuation. So kind of looking back over the data, over the past 18 years, Cumberland's student population has declined approximately 13%. North Yarmouth has declined around 4%. The cost-sharing formula has remained tied, though, to valuation during that time, despite kind of those population or student population changes. The main law, and that kind of brings us into what we're talking about tonight, allows districts flexibility in determining cost-sharing models. So districts might use valuation, which is what we currently do. They might use a blended approach, which includes valuation as well as student population, or another mutually agreed upon method. And so kind of looking at some of the other main districts, we've seen a lot of those blended models or per pupil approaches. There are some that use a 50-50 model over the past 10 years. And, we've looked at some of the math, and if we had done something that was possibly more of a 50-50 blended model, that could have resulted in pretty substantial savings for Cumberland, possibly or estimated to be around $1.3 million, which is a big, not pocket change. So tonight's motion and tonight's agenda does not change the formula. It doesn't dictate an outcome. It's simply here to initiate a statutory process to request the MSAD 51 board to convene a meeting of municipal representatives. That process is also includes a neutral state-approved facilitator to help review the data and guide that discussion. And so this is really just a first step tonight to be talking about going into if that's what the council's, ends up wanting to do, kind of that structured review process. So first step in terms of, in many steps that would come. Before we open to public comment, Mr. Manager, is there anything that I missed?
Madam Chair, you nailed it, so really well done. I thought you laid it out very well. The big area that you're looking at, I think, is, the goal, as you stated, was just a fair, transparent, and community-supported process, looking at funding across both towns. And then the main law does allow that flexibility, as you noted, when you do look at the cost-sharing agreements. And then, a good formula balances student needs, municipal resources, and long-term sustainability. So the fact that it hasn't been reviewed formally for a long time, it's not a bad thing to do. It may not result in any changes, or it may result in changes, but oftentimes it's good, like a comprehensive plan, to take that time to look and see if the chart, if the course that you're plotting is consistent with where you intended to go. So I guess best way to summarize
Best way to summarize it. All right, before we get into council discussion, anyone from the public want to come up and share your thoughts? Yep, come on up.
Hello, good evening. Councillor Filson, the members of the Cumberland Town Council. I think, as you know, my name is Andrea Berry, and I serve as the chair of the North Yarmouth Select Board. I want to be clear that at this moment, I'm not speaking on behalf of the town of North Yarmouth tonight, as our board has not had a chance yet to meet after being notified about this agenda item only on Thursday, and we have not had a meeting since. Instead, I'm offering my perspective as a fellow municipal official who has been closely following this issue for a number of years. I'm speaking regarding agenda item 26021, the request to the MSAD 51 Board of Directors to begin a review and reconsideration of the cost-sharing agreement between Cumberland and North Yarmouth. I understand that the cost sharing is a significant issue for both communities, and I appreciate the council's desire to ensure that the agreement remains fair and sustainable over time. However, I would respectfully suggest that this may not be the right moment to initiate this process. First of all, both Cumberland and North Yarmouth are currently going through a town-wide revaluation, and those updated valuations will directly affect how we understand each community's relative property value, which is a core component of any cost-sharing discussion. It seems prudent to allow those revaluations to conclude so that any conversation is grounded in accurate and current data rather than numbers that may soon change. Second, the MSAD 51 board has expressed interest in conducting an enrollment and projection study. Student enrollment trends and long-term projections are central to any thoughtful examination of a cost allocation. North Yarmouth is in full support of this enrollment study. Beginning a formal reconsideration before the study is completed would mean, again, entering a complex statutory process without some of the most important data in hand. Third, the recent passage of LD 1829, an act to build housing for Maine families and attract workers to Maine businesses in amending laws governing housing density, introduces significant changes to how housing can be developed across the state that may affect growth significantly and the patterns within both of our communities. The law requires municipalities to allow a minimum number of dwelling units per lot and limits dimensional requirements, with especially broad implications for areas served by public water and public sewer. Because Cumberland has municipal sewer services and North Yarmouth does not, these changes could lead to very different development pressures in both towns. The legislative changes, including higher allowable density where sewer exists and reduced local review for small multi-unit projects, may accelerate housing growth and could, in turn, influence the future enrollment and property values in our communities. Importantly, much of this implementation is still in rulemaking and interpretation, and the long-term impacts on our tax basis and school populations are not yet clear, allowing more uncertainty around how this law will shape local development, and it will provide more stable foundation for us if we wait for that information to come down the pipeline. I'd also note that this discussion is arising in the middle of budget season for both of our towns and the MSAD 51. Introducing this uncertainty around costs leads to potential complicated budget developments, public understanding or misunderstanding, and ultimately voter approval that may be negatively affected. Stability and clarity are particularly important at this time of year in this moment. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that even the initial public discourse of this idea, including on social media, has already highlighted how sensitive this topic is and how quickly it can affect perception between both of our towns. Both communities value our long-standing partnership within the MSAD and many other ways. If the council does decide to move forward with this process now, I would strongly encourage a strong collaborative effort and coordinated approach that prioritizes shared communications and mutual respect so that the discussion strengthens rather than strains the relationship between our communities. Taken together, these factors suggest that there are simply too many significant unknowns at this time. A reconsideration process is substantial and can have long-term impacts for both of our communities. Waiting until revals are complete, enrollment projections are finalized, budget season has concluded, and the practical impacts of LD 1829 are better understood will allow for a more informed, transparent, and constructive conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Would anyone else like to come up and speak? If you wouldn't mind just your name and where you live, please.
What's that?
I'm so sorry. If you wouldn't mind just sharing your name and where
Oh,
you
yeah,
live.
absolutely. Dave Noonan, Meadow Lane in Cumberland. So I actually applaud you guys for bringing this to the table. I know it's something that I brought up in public discussion probably more than 2 years ago at this point, that the cost sharing for 60 years hasn't been addressed really. So I think if not now, then we just kick it down the curb, down the path or whatnot. So I applaud you for bringing that to the table now, just to actually talk about it, because it does say to begin a review. So it's not, obviously, nothing's going to change right now or even potentially in the near future per your comments before. So just would like to recognize you and applaud you for bringing this to the table at this point.
Thanks. Anyone else like to come up?
Hi, Paul Whitmarsh, North Yarmouth. As my colleague Andrea was just up here, I'll also state that I'm saying this more as a North Yarmouth taxpayer than anything else. So if none of you have seen, or if you haven't watched the the video of Bill Stockmeyer from a joint standing committee where he gave that brief, it's very informative. I watched it today actually and learned quite a bit from him. So the savings that you'd be looking at, if anything were to actually be able to happen, would be about 2% possibly, only on the amount above EPS that would be cost shifted over to North Yarmouth. The cost of having a facilitator paid by the school, then also having a mediator paid by the school if we can't reach something on a 3-3 committee. It's questionable about it'll be the panacea that you're all hoping to. I understand it doesn't look fair that you pay 72% but only make up 68% of the student population. But it doesn't look fair to someone living in a 55 and over housing development that they're paying anything towards the school at all when their neighborhood doesn't have any children in the school. That's just the way it works. So we use property values to determine your taxes paid, and part of the taxes are based on the schools. So we have a 55-plus housing development in North Yarmouth, and it pays the exact same taxes. We don't look to say, well, you guys are never going to put children in the schools, so we'll split it a little bit and we'll give you a cut on it. It's just, so we just take 100% of the valuation of the district and then determine which portion's which. No one's trying to, get ahead on someone else. That's just the way taxes generally work. So I'm concerned that it'll create too much of a friction here. I think really where our boards should be focused is the school board itself. That's our biggest cost for both towns. And we should be asking that school board to be making some difficult decisions. They're looking at a 7+% increase in their budget. Why? Why aren't we as a town council and as a select board looking at them and going, no, we're not going to accept that. We're not going to support a 7% increase. We'll support a 3% increase. And even that's going to be tough for people. So working together in order to control the school spending is really where our effort should be, rather than trying to change the formula and creating a committee that's going to be 3 Cumberland, 3 North Yarmouth, and each going in different directions. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come up? Please.
Good evening. I promise not to use my entire 5 minutes. I introduced this more than 2 years ago when I was still on the council. When it comes to timing, there's no good time for this to happen. It might have been good 2 years ago, but hindsight's 20/20. As far as enrollment goes, I'm encouraged by some of the cost-sharing agreements I looked at online. You can look at every district's cost-sharing agreement at the Maine Department of Ed website, and I've looked at many. I've looked just today at enrollment in Falmouth, Yarmouth, and Gray. Falmouth enrollment's down. Yarmouth is down below pre-COVID numbers, 100 under what they were in 2019. Gray is the lowest it's been in 15 years, and it's just constantly gone down for the last 5 years. So that when we move forward, I'm hoping that a new cost-sharing plan would include adjustments for enrollment, like RSU 5, Freeport has a 5-year review or a 10-year review of the numbers. But I will trust whoever puts together a new cost-sharing agreement will will be responsive to all of the concerns mentioned by our friends in North Yarmouth, and that safeguards will be put in place to protect. We have, in Cumberland, most of our development in the 2020s, in a decade, was 55-plus housing, which is part of the reason our enrollment has gone down, but our value has sort of, I don't know, I'm not articulating very well on that, and I don't want to pick a fight, so I'm not going to go, tit for tat on these issues. I would just like it to be thoughtfully pursued, and I thank you, and Tig, you did a great job explaining the situation.
Thank you. Anyone else? You sure? You came out in the snow. Okay. All right, then we'll close public comment and move into council discussion. Who has a thought?
Jeff, and then I have a thought.
Go for it, Denise.
Yeah, you go first.
You go first.
Okay.
That's efficient.
So cost sharing agreement with MS 8051. This can be viewed as a controversial subject by some. However, it doesn't have to be. This agreement has been in place for decades, and it hasn't been reviewed in decades. I want to give my thoughts on this, but before I do, I want to share a few things. I was lucky enough to benefit from the MSAD 51 school system growing up. I remember taking economics in high school, and I took it again in college. I was ahead of the curve because much of what was taught I'd already learned in high school. The same could be said for calculus and physics. So I always believe in trying to give the children of this community the best education possible. I believe that a responsibility of the citizens of the town of Cumberland to make sure their tax dollars are being spent as wisely as possible and increases are kept to a minimum. In the last 25 years, the school system has greatly improved, and the town's recreational facilities have been improved much compared to when I was a child. We are very lucky to live here. We have a great community. However, we are at a crossroads financially. Longtime residents are feeling the pinch of our tax burden. The taxes in Cumberland have always been higher than surrounding communities. I have heard several citizens raise their concerns about property tax and looking for relief. Everyone needs to remember that all the council is requesting the school board to do tonight is to run the numbers. We need to find out if the numbers fairly represent what the citizens of the town of Cumberland should be paying towards funding our children's education. We're not asking the school board to cut educational funding. We are attempting to get the facts and figures and how much of the MS 8051 budget should be funded by the town of Cumberland based on the populations. That is all we're trying to do right now. I spent a lot of time Sunday afternoon reflecting on the TRICOM meeting that we had a few weeks ago. Timothy Valenti of North Yarmouth made a comment they'd like to see the two towns and the school board work together more as one unit. I couldn't agree more that collaboration is a good thing. I feel collaboration starts with everyone sharing their needs. As a council, I feel it's our responsibility to share the needs of the town of Cumberland. So in addition to asking the Board of Directors to review the cost-sharing agreement, I believe it is our responsibility to work towards providing the Board of Directors with the needs of the town. We have some excellent financial planning, but it's numbers on a balance sheet. It does not share the fact that our firefighters are using air packs from 1998, or our police department does not have a locker large enough to store a long gun if confiscated, or our public works department is using a front-end loader from 2003 with over 10,000 hours for critical tasks. The school department does a great job articulating their current and upcoming challenges. I feel it is our responsibility to share our challenges as a town as well. By better understanding each other's challenges will allow us to plan and collaborate better than ever. However, hopefully with better long-term planning, we can avoid spikes in tax rate and accommodate budget needs. So in closing, I fully support the review of the cost-sharing agreement that is currently, review of the cost-sharing agreement that is currently in place for MSAD 51. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise, are you ready?
Yeah, I didn't write anything out, so it'll be a little more rambly than that. But I did watch the August 2024 Joint Standing Committee video, as was referenced in emails from North Yarmouth Select Board and also Superintendent Porter. But I found it to be informative. However, I did not come away thinking that I had just watched some informative presentation. Not having any ideas about what I would be watching, I found it to be extremely negative, like this air of dissuading anyone from trying it before it had even begun. There was a lot of fear mongering in that video. There were a lot of unknowns and this fear of the unknown. And the three main reasons why were, one, that only the percentage over EPS is what factors into your cost sharing agreement. And it's not that much, it's just a percentage. Like, $1 is $1 is $1. Like, I don't care if it's $1,000. Like, that alone is not a reason to not pursue it. And I think it's a ridiculous argument. Second, another quote, most of the other districts don't do per pupil, so MSAD 51 shouldn't try it. Again, I will reference, you know, like no one had banned infill either in microplastics, and we did it first in Maine. Like, to me, that's like challenge accepted. Like, no one's ever looked at that before. Like, how many towns have wanted to, but they've been told by experts, no one's done that before, no one's tried it, so you guys just probably shouldn't try it. Like, no, again, unacceptable argument, not good enough for me. The third piece to dissuade from this process is it's long and complicated. Okay, so is a comp plan. So is anything worthwhile. Like, meaningful change is rarely fast or simple, and that alone is not an argument to not pursue just going through a normal process that exists in a statute already that many towns have done, many towns will do in the future, and that we have not done in 60 years. Sorry, like, take a breath, because it's really frustrating, because this video keeps being referenced as like this like beacon of knowledge when really it wasn't. It was very negative. If you rewatch it, there was a lot of leading questions about how are relationships afterward, and then referenced was one example of two towns that broke up because there were lawsuits involved and the cost sharing agreement hadn't been conducted properly for 4 years. That's an edge case. That isn't to say that everyone who goes through a process where you're looking objectively at what will work for both towns isn't worth going through, and that automatically our towns are going to have some massive, sorry, let me find the quote, because multiple times there was this term, volatile nature, and fairly divisive, that kept going around within that meeting. And again, it's like you're setting up a process for failure. If you go into it with an open mind and we're being positive and we're looking at it objectively without trying to like inflict that negative opinion on the process from the get-go, we will have a much better time. And so here we are now, trying to simply look at something that we are well within our rights to do, just as towns in a cost-sharing agreement, and it's already, there's all this negativity coming down on us, which is ridiculous. Like, Councilor Douglas is not here tonight to say this, but she said before, this is essentially a housekeeping item, and that's what I feel this is. And that's why there's a process in place to look at it and make sure that it works for everyone. Regarding social media impressions, not on it. I don't know what those are talking about, but we know that social media is not a reflection of how people vote, and it also is not a great vehicle for transparent information, which is why it's up to towns to make sure that they're being open, putting everything out there, putting all the information, if we go through this process, on a website so everyone can see it, having lots of opportunities for public input, workshops, whatever is needed. That's why there's a facilitator. That's why part of that facilitator's job is to do a crap ton of research beforehand and present it before that group even meets for the first time. There will be all this information and data gathered and presented to those people so that it's a purposeful meeting, so that there's options available, and so everyone is learning, but it's also objective. And that's one of the reasons for a facilitator is hopefully it's an objective process and it is simply facts. Additionally, talking about like revals have been mentioned multiple times. In that video, I took notes, I wrote it down because I thought it was valuable information, that revals don't have any impact on what the state is evaluating you as far as how they're going to share costs with EPS, with towns. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I want to make sure that if that's real, we need to like squash that talking point immediately, because no, that's like misinformation. Like revals are not part of this.
Yeah, to Councilor Thorson, to your question, no, it's all state state valuation, which is determined by Department of Maine Revenue Services. And so they determine what each town's state valuation is on an annual basis. And then that's what they use to make that,
Okay.
calculate the split off from.
Okay, so there's that. And then additionally, yes, I agree that both towns should collaborate with the school more on the budget and tell them like, hey, we're having a really rough year coming up. Like, let's try to, you know, take out what you can. Like, yes, let's do that. Let's also do this though. Like, it's not one or the other. We can do both at the same time. Like Shirley said, there's like never going to be a good time. There's always going to be something. Like half of the year is spent preparing for the next year's budget. Like there's always going to be some other comp plan coming up in 10 years or some other huge thing, some like reval, this and that, like big development projects. Like I don't think there's ever a good time. It's definitely like 60 years in the future is a good time, and we are here. So no, like if it's not a good time now, it won't ever be. So like I feel like we should just jump in and get it started, because according to that video as well, even if everything goes great, everyone agrees and there's no need for a third party mediator or whatever, it's still a 1 to 2 year long process, a very lengthy process before you can even get it out to voters. And that's the other thing, is assuming that voters will just like turn this down right out the gate, not the way to go into it. I feel like if everything is presented factually, everyone is working together, we're all being equally transparent and involving the public, then there's no question of what is going on and how we arrived here. And there will be a slate of recommendations, and it just makes sense. And if you're gonna talk about LD 1829, Cumberland's the one that's most likely gonna be putting way more kids into the school in the future. So this isn't even a Cumberland's trying to pull one over on North Yarmouth and, you know, pay less money and shift it over to North Yarmouth, because eventually it will be us with more kids in the school paying more, and that's fine. That's the whole purpose of making it be fair. Is I don't care if like we're paying way more per year. If that's how many pupils we're putting in to the school, then we should be paying for them. And that's the point. And that's where I'm coming from. Like, I don't want there to be any like talking points about Cumberland versus North Yarmouth here. That's not what's happening. This is, to me, us all making sure that this agreement is like future-proof as much as we can make it, and it's something that we revisit on an interval to make sure that it stays fair and good going forward and works, and we're not, 60 years in the future looking at this again. So that's it. Thanks for listening.
Great commentary. Mr. Vale?
I'm not going to try to take as much time getting my points out there.
Sorry, Bob,
I think you guys did a great job. The gentleman from North Yarmouth, I think really, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but I think he really struck on the real issue, and that is what are the working conditions with the SAD. So if you keep doing the same thing year after year after year, and you expect a different outcome, it doesn't happen. So tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, we're going to be meeting with Yarmouth, North Yarmouth, Freeport, and Falmouth to discuss ways that we can consolidate services and practices. 30% of the budgets are municipal, 10% is county, 70% is the schools. Until we draw the schools into the conversation and ask them to re-examine what they do, why should we have a teacher's contract for Cumberland? Why should we not have a teacher's contract for, say, half a dozen communities? Why should we have a fireman's contract or a police contract for our separate communities? Why shouldn't we all be drawing from the same pool of talent? And we're all chasing around trying to hire the same people, trying to organize. But until we actually start doing things a little different, until we say, you know what, I don't need a new fire station. I don't need a police station. I don't need a new school, because the three towns surrounding me all have empty chairs. They all have a brand new fire truck we can use. So it's a mindset that we have to all get our hands around and decide we have to do things differently. So to go back to what the object here is this evening, I'm a little less optimistic, I guess, because I know people's nature. You're going to have two school board members, two council members and one school board member representing each town. So you have a 3-3 vote, and the expectation that there's going to be anything less than a 3-3 swing it strikes me as we're having an exercise in futility. The exercise is important, and if we're all honest with ourselves and say, all right, we're going to try to do what's beneficial for everybody, but we all know what happens is that we get behind closed doors and you're told how to vote. You know, North Yarmouth is going to vote no, and Cumberland's going to vote yes, and whether you have an arbitrator in there, you know, the exercise, I don't see it playing out. And so we've been at this for 60-some years. We've never had a charter review, and there is no way to have a charter review. If you look at Falmouth, Yarmouth, Freeport, Cape Elizabeth, the town councils have what we would call the poison pen. The school board comes forward with their budget, and the council says, you know what, that's a little bit more than what the taxpayers can afford this year. Go back and have another go at it. We don't have that. But it's a mechanism that's important, and we ought to be taking our legislatures to task to ask them to give us a couple more tools in our toolbox. We don't have that. So this really is the only tool we've got, and I don't see it being a sharp knife. It's more like a dull hoe. But the exercise, I do think, is important. You know, it's a conversation that we ought to have, and I think it's, more importantly, is that the conversations have to grow from here, and we all have to come to the table with saying, all right, we can't do what we've been doing any longer. We have to engage the school. We have to engage the surrounding communities around us, and we have to start combining services, doing things smarter and better. And it goes right to, you know, the staff, you know, the finance people or the clerks in the office. How do we utilize people that are more beneficial to a greater group of people than just two towns? So that's it. I spoke too much.
Mike or Andrew?
Are we just going down the line?
Sure.
I don't have much to add other than I think it's good practice to review things periodically on a regular basis and make sure that it still works. And if it doesn't, we find out something that works. And it's been 60 years, and I think it's a good idea to take a look. And maybe the current situation is the one that is the best way that it should be broken out. But maybe it isn't. And I think that we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the taxpayers to make sure that we've done the work to review and to see, is this the right way to go, or is there another way to go? And, you know, it's, as been mentioned before, it's been 60 years since this has been looked at. I think we're due.
All set?
Sure.
You know, I've been on a lot of boards in my life. I've been on an insurance board, a charity board, an education board, and here in the town council. And the one constant word that shows up, or the phrase, fiduciary responsibility. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Cumberland, not North Yarmouth, to revisit this. The funding formula was set in 1966. Bob and I grew up in the town. We lived in this town. North Yarmouth, about 700 people. We were probably right around 3,000. Things have changed a lot. And to not look at a funding formula that is 60 years old would absolutely be wrong, and we would not be fulfilling our obligations to the residents and taxpayers of Cumberland. We do a lot. We pick up more than our share. If the police, I'm not talking about the SRO, but if the police have to respond to our school system, it's Cumberland Police. If the rescue has to respond, the fire respond, it's Cumberland Fire, it's Cumberland Rescue. you know, we now have this one campus plan. Well, that's fine. Everything's in Cumberland, which means none of that is taxed. None of that land is taxed at all. None of the properties or anything like that. We do snow removal. North Yarmouth doesn't. You know, I heard tonight when we ought to be, you know, we ought to be addressing this with the school and come up with ways. Shirley and I were on the council and we put out a proclamation against the school budget because it was so outrageous. North Yarmouth was no place to be heard. I was on the joint standing committee with North Yarmouth for over 10 years, and we got zero accomplished in trying to do services, you know, share services. They just would not come to the table. What's the latest I heard? Well, maybe we have more in common with the town of Poland than we do Cumberland. You're either a dance partner or you're not, but that's getting away from the school. To me, it's simple, and there's only one funding formula that I support, and that's per pupil. It's only fair. The structure's the same, and you take the whole cost of it, you divide it per kid, and say that's what each town owns. And you know, why was the funding formula the way it was in 1966? Well, probably because we had the foresight. We didn't have much development, but we had a lot of well-to-do residents down that way. But try to go buy a lot in North Yarmouth right now, and you're going to pay pretty similar to what you're going to pay in Cumberland. So, yeah, I'm 100% supportive of this, and I hope you're wrong, Bob. I'm not saying you are, but I hope you're wrong. And the cost of doing this, I live a life of mediation and arbitration in my work. And what this is going to cost is chump change. So 100% supportive. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. For me, just speaking as a counselor, and I think I actually think it is a good time to be doing this for us anyway. I mean, we're in the throes of our comprehensive plan where we are looking at our zoning. We are doing a total overhaul of that. We are going to be at the end of our reval, which I know is the state valuation is different, but we are in a period of change and revisiting and looking at things and trying to understand if they still work, if they're serving us in the best capacity. I think the fiduciary responsibility is just, I mean, that's the bottom line for me. I think it's, you know, if there is cost savings or if there's a better way to do it, we owe that to our tax base to look into that and to understand. But even with 1829 coming in, you know, what I like about some of these other models is that they are a formula, right? And so they are going to reflect the realities of population or per pupil costs. We don't know what's going to happen with 1829. It might mean a ton of development for the town of Cumberland because we do have a lot of water and sewer. It might not, you know. What happens in practice can sometimes be different than, you know, what the news is saying about how tomorrow every lot in Cumberland is going to be, you know, covered and eaten up, and we're going to have 5,000 new kids in the school, you know, overnight. Maybe that'll happen, but I'm not sure that that's practical. So, yeah, I think great points made. I'm certainly in favor of moving this forward. Are there any other comments that you look like you might have one, sir?
I'm ready to give you a motion.
Okay. You ready to go snowplow?
I got some parents to help out. I moved.
Is there any other, sorry, Jeff,
Yeah.
any other
Oh, good.
comments or, okay.
I move to formally request the MSAD 51 Board of Directors to begin a review and reconsideration of the cost sharing agreement between Cumberland and North Yarmouth.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Thank you for everybody who came out tonight. We will move into new business. Councilor Mahalik, what have you got for us?
All right. I have the $20 for the food pantry, and really just hats off to our Public Works employees. They did a great job in this storm, and thank you for all their efforts.
I don't have anything. Just thanks for plowing, not hitting my mailbox this time. And I will give a shout out to Jeff, who passed by my house. And I didn't realize how big plows were. It was taller, like the blade was taller than I was, and that was kind of scary. But he didn't hit my mailbox, and he also gently picked up my neighbor's dead mailbox and threw it into the snowbank for them to find. So it was much appreciated. Got out of it and everything. Could have totally bulldozed the thing and destroyed it, and just didn't. Stopped on the route and took it, tossed it. So we have good people, and Jeff's one of them. The end.
MVP, Jeff Mahalik. Yep. Counselor of the Year.
I don't know about that, but we'll see what I can do.
Counselor of the week. How about that?
All right, Counselor of the Week. Bob.
I just have one thing, and that is the joint meeting tomorrow with Freeport, Yarmouth, North Yarmouth, Falmouth, Cumberland. If there's anybody that has anything that they want brought up or for ideas, or what we're trying to come out with is a work plan for give to the town managers to take a item or a couple of items forward and report back to us. Anyways, I'm looking forward to the meeting, and if anybody, I think Denise said might attend with me, but if anybody has anything, reach out to me tonight or tomorrow.
Do you have any materials from the last meetings? Were there any action items or any sort of stuff that you could share with me?
I've got the email. I can forward it to you.
Okay. I don't want to ask repeated questions that have already been answered, so that'd be good.
No, it's a great group. I think you'll have a nice time. I had a great time.
Cool.
Counselor Magoon.
All I have is the LCC is meeting next week, not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, March 4th at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers.
Could you see if we could do an invasive walk in the springtime?
Yeah, I'll ask.
you.
Really, nothing other than congratulations to USA women's and men's hockey. It was a great day yesterday watching hockey, and it was last week watching the women's. So, congratulations to everybody.
Congratulations. The only thing I have is, Matt kind of touched on this, but there are 2 seats for folks that are interested in running for public office or also joining any of the local committees. So the library, the amazing Kelly Greenlee, we've been working with her to choose 2 dates for folks who want to know what it's like to run for public office or serve in public office. March 11th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. and Thursday, March 12th from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. Both at Prince Memorial Library. No registration, just come and chit chat. Would anyone on the council like to sit down with anyone who wants to run, or just think about it maybe if you want to?
Sure.
Oh, great. Great. But it's always good for people that are thinking to get the real life perspective. So we can talk offline, and if anyone else is interested in sitting down, let us know. There'll be people from the school board as well as from the North Yarmouth Select Board there as well. And I think that's it. Just a big thank you again to Public Works for doing an awesome job and
Great
taking
job,
out.
Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great job.
They're awesome.
So, and thanks everyone who came out tonight, driving in the snow. Yeah, thank you.
While you're on the topic of championships, we had some championships this week at Greeley High School. So boys swimming won a state title, girls Nordic won a state title. I'm trying to remember. It's boys swimming, girls Nordic.
Track
and
as well.
boys indoor track. I
Yes.
think. Yeah. So congratulations to all our Greeley athletes.
Great.
You didn't hear the fire trucks take?
I did. Yeah, I did.
It was a daily
I most
occurrence there
certainly
for
did.
about 3 days straight. They're like, okay, the parade's going to hit tonight at 6:40, and then 9:40 they were coming back from Fort Kent with the Nordic team. So Yeah, I was looking at it like, oh my gosh, like we're gonna have a standing operating procedures that the fire is ready and willing for another celebration of Greeley coming through with another championship. It's
They
pretty
went all the
awesome.
way up to Fort Kent.
That's where they have the
Yeah,
states
Nordic
now.
Center, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
There's less snow up there than there is down here.
there is.
Yeah.
all of a sudden.
Yep.
Yep, pretty amazing, pretty amazing.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, unanimous, Brenda. Great. Thanks everyone for coming out tonight.
Peak efficiency.